Welcome to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, brought to you by Pilma. This podcast helps lead lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Here is your legal marketing expert and host, Ken Hardison.
Well, hello, everyone. This is Ken Hardison, and welcome to another episode of Grow Your Law Firm. And today we have the honor and the privilege of having Chris Mullins, the intake guru, with us today. Thank you for joining us today, Chris.
Absolutely. Last time we talked, you told me that I was the godmother of intake. I was like, I don't know if I like that or not.
Yeah, you're a guru today.
Yeah, okay, good.
Yeah. So, Chris, tell us a little bit about your background and what you do and about your company and everything, and then we'll get into, we're going to talk about intake today, by the way, which I think is definitely the biggest leakage. More lawyers, especially PI lawyers, lose more money every year because of poor intake than anything else. You know, I've always preached, instead of trying to throw more money at get more of spending more marketing, what you should do is tighten up what you are getting and convert more of those. And you're one of the people that helps people do that, and you're very much needed. So I'm glad to have you here today, Chris.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah.
So tell me about your company. Tell me about you.
Okay. So intakeacademy.com, that's our company, and 30 years now. So
Yeah.
30 years now with working with law firms and doing like what you talk about, Ken, inspecting what you expect. It's all about conversion with us. So everything's about conversion. Even if it's an appointment, like a scheduled appointment for some reason, if that's the way you're doing it at your firm for whatever the reason, it's all about conversion. And the way to make that happen is listen to the calls, score the calls, give feedback and training. It's actually that simple.
Yeah. And, you know, it seems simple, but when in action, I've seen that it's hard for law firms. I mean, because one of the things that I preach is it's not just converting the calls, it's converting the callers that you wanted the case. I mean, because that's what it really comes down to, isn't it? I mean, you know, and I preach you ought to get, you know, you want 100%, but getting over 90%. And most lawyers tell me, well, I sign up every case I want. And then I remember I used to hire you to do mystery calls for me, and I go to their office and sit down and play them, and they get physically sick because they couldn't believe what was going on. But they didn't, like you said, they didn't inspect it. So if nothing else, you know, you need to hire somebody like you or get somebody to mystery call them, you know, mystery shop or whatever you want to call it, and record it and listen to it, or you need to be listening to your calls if you've got the equipment. Now there's a lot of equipment out there. The phone systems, Ring Central has a thing called Ring Sense. CallRail, the tracking stuff has stuff you can listen to it. You can listen to your LSA calls. But what I find, and I don't know if you do, Chris, and then I'll shut up and let you talk because this is about you, not me, is that lawyers got the best intentions of doing that, and they'll stay on it 2 or 3, 4 weeks, and then they'll get busy, or whoever's they got in charge of it gets busy, and they just don't do it, and they forget about it. I mean, don't you find that?
Yeah, I find that, and I find like one of the biggest problems is we take our best intake person and we promote them to supervisor or manager because they're so good. But then they don't know how to supervise or manage, and then you lost them. You lost all of that value that you needed for conversion. And then we make it worse, and we give them all kinds of responsibilities, which have to do with administrative work and reports and data. And so now they're completely away from everything. And so that's the biggest mistake. And the solution is, when you're hiring for new intake team members, also hire one person that's responsible for listening to the calls and giving feedback and scoring, like all at the same time. And that's it.
So I got what we just got through with masterminds in Key West. I'm actually still in Key West. That's why that's why I'm wearing this headset and everything, because I'm having to work off of my laptop. But this was a big question. What kind of person, who am I looking for? What are the qualities? What are the characteristics? What are the strengths I'm looking for when I hire somebody to be an intake person? You know, is there certain industries I need to be stealing from? You know, or poach. Do you have any recommendations on that?
Yeah, I would focus on sales sharks and people in financial business, insurance. These people here, they know sales, they know metrics, They want to make money, and just hire people that you want to sell. And those are the kind of people that you want right there, those particular individuals. But separate from that, as far as character, you want people that have worked even at like restaurants, because that's hard work. I mean, they're on their feet all day, every day, 7 days a week, holidays. The people that do that successfully, they want to work. And people that their parents, their family had their own business or a farm, they want to work. They understand hard physical labor. People that are in the retail industry, 7 days a week, holidays, on their feet. All of these people, they understand like scripts, they understand conversion, they understand being held accountable for sales. So you want people that are accustomed to really working. And then setting that aside, again, I would look at the insurance industry, the financial industry, write your ads a certain way to attract those individuals, and hire them.
Yeah, good. That's y'all hear that now. So go out there and find these people, because
Yeah.
I think it's a burnout job. I think it can get tough, but I think it's one of that and receptions, I think, are two of the most important people in your law firm, because if you don't get the people in the door, first impression, what do you call, I think you talk about that. You call it, what do you call it? Something of first impression.
Oh, I don't know. Tell me, Ken.
I can't remember, but
Here,
like
here's,
that.
here's the way to look at it. Let me just tell you this. I just said this a little while ago to one of my one-on-one students is the first impression is every single communication moment. It's not like just a one-shot thing. It's every moment you have a communication with anybody. That's a first impression. So you have to have it up here. It's like all the time, every time. Because
Yeah.
if you don't, you relax too much and you make a bunch of mistakes.
So how can you lure these people if they're used to, like, these salespeople in the insurance and financial industry? How can you lure them away? I mean, what kind of money are we talking about? What kind of incentives do you see
Yeah.
that works?
So, I mean, I do have a small handful of private clients that everything is outbound with them, 100% outbound. They're working with different marketing agencies for law firms. I don't want to talk about who they are.
Right.
And they're getting leads constantly. And one law firm in particular in the intake department, you can make $125,000 a year. So, because of commission, they're focusing more on commission. And it just depends on how serious you are. If you really want a serious sales team, then those are the people you hire, and you'll find a way to pay them commissions and bring in the best. Because outbound is very, very difficult. Like outbound every day, all day long. It's really difficult to do. So you need people that are experts and professionals that understand sales and sticking with it. That's what's really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I guess the commission is per case that gets signed up that you want.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And then some will give even more than if it's like a high-end case, they'll give even more bonuses, more commissions. So
Right.
it's really about running your intake team as a sales team, inbound and outbound. It's a sales team. Don't treat it like the traditional intake mindset of a law firm. It's a sales team. And that's the shift that you want to have.
Yeah. And I would see that, because I'm guessing what I'm seeing now is a lot of these companies, especially lead companies or whatever, if you're doing a lot of internet marketing, Facebook, social media,
Mhm.
you do have to do a lot of outbound calling and following up and things
Yeah.
like that. I call it chasing, but the deal is, and most people don't like doing that. I mean,
No,
they
it's
really
hard.
don't.
It's hard. I'll tell you this, that I do recommend, I mean, if you attract the high-end folks, the professionals, the experts, like we talked about, insurance and financial, full-time is okay. But you should still also have some part-time outbound, like 4 hours at a time, because when you start doing outbound for more than 4 hours, you're just losing your conversion, you're losing the energy level of that person. You got to keep them up. So you could have them do 4 hours of outbound and maybe 4 hours of inbound,
Inbound.
for example.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Versus 8, 10 hours a day, every day of outbound. Yeah. You're going to
Burn
lose
you.
them.
Yeah,
You're going
burn
to,
them out
you,
quick.
you, you burn them out. And then the only other thing I want to see before I forget, because I thought of it a couple of seconds ago, then I forgot it. Now I have it back. And that is rebuild your intake team. So to try to keep people to stay there, turn it into a career. You know, see if you can make 2 or 3 different levels within intake. Be open to what that looks like. So someone comes in at one level, and then instead of them having to leave and go to another company or another department, they stay in intake and they get that next level, and so on and so forth. So like it's a culture shift also for intake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know part of your services is that you actually do mystery calls and then you score them, and I guess you send them the recordings and the score and all that kind of
Right.
stuff to law firms, right?
Right.
So what do these law firms, if they do that, what should they do with this information? I mean, do you go in and train, or do you, like if I was hiring somebody new, what to start there, what would you recommend? How would you train somebody that you bring them in and maybe they've done some outbound calling, but let's say it's just somebody that's never done intake, but that wants a job and willing to work hard and they meet all the criteria. What would you do? I mean, how long would you be before you put them on a real call?
Yeah. So I always feel like it's important to get them on the phone right away. So even like after 1, maybe 2 weeks of onboarding for everything else that doesn't have to do with the actual selling process on the phone, and then just get them on the phone. But ideally, you want them on the phone where it would be great if you had the technology where you could listen.
Whisper.
Yeah, I love that because then you could say, hey, say this. Don't forget that. Be careful. Oh, no, don't go there. Right. That would be amazing if you could do that. It's 2024. We should be able to do that. So I recommend get
Yeah.
on the phone right away. Do that high end. If you can't do that for some reason, then have a system where you can listen to their calls at least after and then give them immediate feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Do you do any role playing first so to kind of get them used to it, like some fake calls or something?
yeah, I would actually start the role playing in the interview process. So you're trying to hire someone to do sales. Let's see if they can sell themselves to you. So, let them let in the hiring process, let them listen to some real calls of your team and don't tell them what you think. Ask them what they think about it.
Do you actually do that for people actually hiring or intake people for them? Because you know what you kind
Yeah.
of doing this 30 years, you kind of know what it takes, right?
Yeah. So what we do is for private clients, we do second opinion telephone interviews. So we guide you on the hiring process. We refer out to a couple of the law firm hiring agencies, if you will. And then when you go through the process that you're supposed to, checking references, doing your first interview, the people that you really feel like you want to hire before you do it, we'll do a second opinion interview. And then we'll just tell you our thoughts and you make the decision from there. And that's
Yeah.
much more popular than I ever thought it was going to be, to tell you the truth.
No, people, I mean, listen, hiring is a big deal because a bad hire, you just wasted, a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort. I mean, so you want to pick the right person. And a lot of times you just don't know. I mean, you do all the testing and people interview really well and all this stuff. But I think I'd like to create a scorecard, like what are you know, the key things that they really got to be able to master that's going to be important to this job. Like I'd want a good voice. I mean, to be honest with you. And what do you think about this? Is something because I got some guys doing this. What do you think about hiring offshore people to do intake, like from the Philippines or Mexico or Colombia? I know,
Mhm.
what do you think about that? Is that working?
Yeah, it is working. It's definitely working. I definitely support it. I have clients that are completely rebuilding their sales team, their intake team 100%, and moving in that direction with nobody in-house and or maybe 1 or 2 people in-house. I totally support it. But it's the same thing. You can't just, oh, wow, it's virtual. We can do that. This is the latest and greatest, best idea, and then go do it without doing everything that you're supposed to do anyway. And you still have to do the training, do the onboarding, listen to calls, let them role play, see how they handle really difficult situations. You can't just like say, I'm doing virtual now and I'm hiring offshore, so everything's okay. It's not okay. You still have to do everything else, but I totally love it.
I was at the Pillman Mastermind, and one of our members was showing us this software that's been out there for big corporations, but it's got like a minimum. You got to have 50 chairs. I mean, or whatever. But
Hmm.
and I think it'll get down to where everything else. But it's the software, the technology is it softens the voice of these foreign people and makes them sound more like English. I don't know how it does it, But there's a
Wow.
lot of companies using that. I'll have to
Yeah.
look that up, but that's crazy. But they said, the lawyer looked into it, but he didn't have but like 12 or 15 people. He could, they wanted to sell him 50 or nothing. And another company was
Oh,
100.
oh
So
wow.
I guess that's for really big corporations that's got
Yeah.
a sales force of, over 50, over 100 or whatever. And they're using these
Right.
people overseas, and it kind of makes the voice, I don't know how I can do it so quick, but it
Mhm.
softens it up to where it's less
Yeah.
foreign. I don't
I
know.
would love to hear that because you want to make sure it doesn't sound like AI, right? So
Right,
you know,
right.
you don't want that. But the other thing too is just to rewind for a second, there's all kinds of things that you want to do to hire people and test and disc tests and things like that. But the thing that most of us aren't doing is traditional sales training. And like you said earlier, do role playing before you hire them. How do they handle off the cuff, unannounced, totally unplanned role playing? What are their instincts?
Yeah. And don't you think that they need to know the history of the firm and the firm's verdicts? Because if they're going to be in sales, they got to brag. And
Yeah.
that's not like the lawyer bragging if you just got an employee bragging. And I
Hmm.
think some firms don't do that. They don't really know what kind of cases. I've heard of firms where their intake people turn away, asbestos cases because I don't see it on my list. You take that case, right? You
Hmm.
refer it out, $1 million fee. But, and then training for objections. I mean, there's always objections. I hear people say all the time, like two or three, I got to wait, talk to my husband or my wife or somebody, or I want to call some other lawyers, or I want to think about it, you know, da da da. I mean, do you train people on how to overcome objections and deal with stuff like that? Because that's
Oh
important,
yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I mean, 100% objections and even answering the objections that exist in the prospective client's mind that didn't even come up. Like it's there and you know it's there because you're being taught that it's there. So you take care of it before it comes up. So like we teach our students to do elevated pitches. And so, it's old school. It's been around for 100 years, but no less than 25 seconds, no more than 30. And so in classes over and over again, we're pushing and teaching them to do it, to do their own for two reasons. One, to sell themselves, to actually sell themselves while they're on the call. Let me just tell you a little bit about myself while we're talking here today. Then I'll ask you some questions, see if I can help you. Would that be okay? And they sell themselves. And then they use the same format to actually also sell the firm. And yeah, 100%. Not everybody's really comfortable with it because the firms that aren't comfortable with it are the firms that haven't accepted yet they really have to have salespeople. And that's what
Yeah.
salespeople do. That's what salespeople do.
This has been many, many, many years ago. I was talking to this guy, and he was a sales trainer. And I got this way of saying brother all the time. When I'm talking like, hey, brother, and I noticed like within 3 minutes into the conversation, he was calling me brother. I said, man, I said, hi. I said, you just kind of, and he said, well, I'm mirroring you. This is part of training, sales training is
Right.
if a person talks fast, you speed up your talk. If a person slows, as a slow talker, you slow down if they're deep, you go deeper. If they're high
Mhm.
pitch, you go up, and then you be careful with it though, because you can insult some people, but if they think you're mocking them, I mean, I don't know. Have you ever heard of that? Where you're
Yeah,
doing the mirroring?
mirroring. Yeah, I have. And we talk about it in classes. And so here's the thing that I talk about with it. So everything that you're saying, yes, but the team members have to understand how to use it and
Yeah,
when to use it. Not like, oh, I think I'll pull this out of my hat and I'll do this today. It's got to be like genuine within the conversation. And then the other thing too is if somebody's talking really low, you don't necessarily want to go that low because you're not really going to sound like someone I want to listen to anymore.
yeah,
You want to give the person you're speaking to your energy through the phone. You want to give them hope and help them to feel like this is a good moment. I trust Chris right
yeah.
now.
You made the right call. That's what you want to feel like.
You made the right call. But there's a lot, like one of the biggest things, Ken, is we analyze the call recordings, the voice, the tone, the pause. Did you pause? When did you pause? How long did you pause for? Did you enunciate? Did you change the inflection and tone? Are you doing active listening? It's not just here's what to say. There's much more involved in it. Yeah.
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 Yeah. So you're going to be at the summit on one of our panels,
Oh,
the PILMA Super Summit. That's May the 14th through 16th, I think, in New Orleans.
yeah.
And if I remember correctly, you're offering something to all the people that go there too. Can you
Hmm.
tell us about that?
Right. So all the folks that go to the summit, they can get a complimentary mystery call, a scorecard, and a 20-minute consultation with me.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah. And the consultation, it will be recorded and you can have the recording.
That's great. So if somebody wants to get up with you, well, how's the best way to do it? I want to hire you, talk to you, pick your brain.
Yeah. The best way is email chris@intakeacademy.com. And my assistant Sophia will get the email and get me right on it. So CHRIS@intakeacademy.com. And you can also call our office at 603-249-5878.
Okay, good deal. So anything that I should have asked you today that I did not ask you, or any words of wisdom to lawyers out there listening to this podcast or watching it on YouTube?
Yeah, just make a mindset shift to run your intake team like a sales team. They understand their numbers. They know how to forecast. They know how to say, okay, here's where I am today with my sales, my conversions. Here's where I want to be at the end of the month. Well, I only have 14 days left. Here's what I've got to focus on getting every day for the next 14 days to meet my goal. Let them run it like a sales business and teach them how to be sales business owners within intake.
Good deal. Well, look,
Yeah.
listen, Chris, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you in New Orleans on May the 14th. Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It'll be fun. Okay.
All right. Until next time, this is Ken Hardison, dedicated to your success.
All right.
You have been listening to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, the podcast that leads lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Go to growyourlawfirm.com to find more ways to market and manage your law firm. Please leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts.